sir, please step forward, face the clerk, and raise your right hand to be sworn.
Do you swear affirm testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Smile, you're on the seat, thank you. Please keep your voice loud and clear on the microphone. And you know it's pointed one way, the jury's this way, so keep your voice a little extra loud.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good morning. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Lieutenant William Thompson. I work for the FWC.
How long have you worked for, FWC stands for what?
Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission.
How long have you worked for FWC?
Since 2017.
I want to call your attention to the date of September 4th, 2022. Were you working on that day?
I was.
Was it a holiday weekend?
It was.
Did your agency have an increased number of officers out there?
It did.
Why?
Holiday weekend, higher boat traffic around the area.
On that day, did you meet a person by the name of George Pino?
I did.
Do you see him in court today?
I do.
Can you please point to him and describe what he's wearing?
He's wearing a dark sports coat with a blue tie.
For the record, the witness has identified the defendant.
Stipulation.
So identified.
Did you know him prior to that day?
I did not.
Did you have a chance to speak with him at a place called Elliott Key Harbor?
I did.
Initially, do you have a brief exchange with him while he's still on a police boat?
I did.
What was the purpose of that interchange?
To identify the operator of a vessel that was involved in an accident.
About what time was it that you came into contact with him?
Around,
If you need to refresh your recollection, just let us know.
I like to use my notes to look at the time, please.
Just review your notes if you would, sir. Don't read from them and look up after you review them.
Around 6:37 p.m.
That's when you spoke with him?
At Elliott Key, correct. Prior to that, around 6:20ish.
Okay. Now, did you at Elliott Key?
I'm having a hard time hearing. Apologize.
At Elliott Key, did you speak with him about trying to figure out whose boat it was and where it was trailered?
Yes,
Okay. And what time is that?
that is at 6:37 p.m.
Was your interaction with him while he was on the boat at Elliott Key recorded on your body-worn camera?
It was.
Did you have an opportunity to review with me a jump drive that has a number of clips from your body-worn camera?
Yes, ma'am.
For the record, I'm showing counsel states 5H. Lieutenant, do you recognize any writing on this exhibit?
I do.
And is that your handwriting?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that signify that you've watched the contents of this clip and it accurately depicts portions of your body-worn camera?
Yes, ma'am.
I move states 5H for identification and evidence.
Judge, prior to our subject, prior objection.
Some prior objection admitted.
5H, bills marked for identification, becomes a state exhibit 98.
Lieutenant, the first clip that's on here, is that you speaking with him on a boat at Elliott Key?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it daylight or nighttime at that time?
Nighttime.
Do you remember about what time it was?
8:16 p.m.
So you actually authenticated 2 videos with me this morning, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on one second. Grab the other one.
Mayor Reese, what was the exhibit number, please?
98.
90, thank you.
For the record, I'm showing counsel now states 5G. Lieutenant, same question. I showed you 2 jump drives this morning. Can you take a look and tell me if you recognize initials on this?
I do.
And is this going to be the clips of your actual body-worn camera footage?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the other one, does that have to do with another issue that we're going to talk about in a bit?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I move states 5G for identification and evidence.
Subject to prior
Subject
objection.
to prior objection admitted.
5G, marked for identification, becomes a state exhibit 99 in evidence.
the record, the state will now publish the statement that's labeled 1, Statement 1. And Your Honor, I have the transcripts for the jurors to follow along.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be handed some transcripts. This is for your use to follow the video evidence. These transcripts are not in evidence. The video is the evidence.
Do you need one?
I have. Thank you.
Lieutenant, it appears that when you have this initial interchange with the defendant while he's on that boat, are you asking him how the boating crash happened?
No, ma'am.
What are you trying to get information about at that point?
So I'm trying to figure out where the vessel comes from, see if it has a trailer, because we have an active scene out there. There's a boat drifting. It could become a navigational hazard. So at that moment, I'm trying to see if there's a trailer. I have people on land trying to coordinate on how to get that boat out of the water so it's not in the way of other boat traffic. So if he has his own trailer, the goal is to use his trailer to transport that boat.
So when he's telling you about some other boat or something, that's not what you were there to find out from him?
No, ma'am.
He's just spontaneously telling you those things?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that was at about 8:16 in the evening?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you speak with the defendant again a little later that same evening?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that also at Elliott Key Harbor?
Yes, ma'am.
When is the next time that you have interaction with him?
At 8:59 p.m.
Okay. Can you tell the court what you were doing? Well, when did you finish? that little brief conversation with him?
8:18.
Okay, so from 8:18 to 8:59, almost 45 minutes or so, can you tell the members of the jury, are you having any interaction with George Pino?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so then at 8:59, you then wind up speaking with him again, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, were you wearing your body-worn camera?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it recording that interaction with him?
Yes, ma'am.
At that point in time, do you have any sense that he's committed a criminal offense?
No, ma'am.
Was he allowed to interact with his daughter and the other girls that had been brought to Elliott Key?
Yes, ma'am. It was encouraged.
Now, when you speak with him this second time, can you tell the jurors, what was your aim?
Second time I spoke to him was to conduct a boating accident investigation. So I wanted to sit down with him and get the specifics of what he remembered that happened or occurred during that time.
Where is it that you speak with him?
At a park bench.
Okay. Were there other officers around you?
No, ma'am. Not that time.
Did you raise your voice to him?
No, ma'am.
Did you order him around?
No, ma'am.
Was he cooperative with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Was he handcuffed?
No, ma'am.
Did he require any assistance to walk to that picnic table?
No, ma'am.
Was he responsive to you when you asked him questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you understand what he was saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you wear your body-worn camera on that night, the same place where we see it right now on your uniform?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's basically at chest level.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're seated opposite the defendant and recording this interview, do you see his face?
No, ma'am. You see his chest, if anything.
During that interaction with him, did you ever ask if he'd been drinking alcohol?
No, ma'am.
Does he tell you anything about drinking alcohol?
He does.
What does he say?
He tells me that he had 2 beers.
Okay. During that interview, do you make arrangements for fire rescue workers to come over and check him out, make sure he's okay?
Yes, ma'am. He was bleeding from the elbow. I wanted to make sure that he was okay, so I had fire rescue take a look at him.
All right. For the record, I'm not going to publish the statement on the state's evidence, style 2, statement 2.
Counsel, did you have transcripts?
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me also add to the explanation about transcripts. Again, you'll hear which recorded conversation, the recordings are the evidence, transcripts are given to you to help you follow along. Transcripts are not in evidence. If there is any discrepancy between what you see on the transcripts and what you hear in the recorded conversation, you must rely on what you hear in the recorded conversation as the evidence. All right? This will apply the instruction I just gave you to all of the recorded conversations you're about to hear. All right?
And Judge, so we can preserve pretrial motions related to the subject matter of the witness's
Yes, sir.
testimony.
Preserve for the record. Thank you.
For the FWC, I do all voting actions legislators. Every time someone says something gets light-flighted, that's when it comes. So, right now, they'll update my officers are just getting to the hospital. So, they all went to the same spot. My office, medical staff, won't give an update until my guys get there. They won't go to the pharmacy, they'll know who's actually calling. So, my guys are about 10 to 15 minutes away. Everyone that's over there. Oh, that's the all the girls? They're over there. There's some over there. There's some who's over there. I think there's a couple of us. No, there's nowhere there. All those girls are fine. They're a little sugar, of course. Voting accident. So,
Your Honor, would the court please read the instruction to the jury regarding?
Edited recordings.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I had read it to you yesterday, the other day. There are many portions of these recordings that have been edited to eliminate irrelevant portions, okay, that would not add to your understanding of this case. Please, that should not concern you in terms of how you evaluate the evidence. And it must not impact you as to how you view or consider the evidence.
Thank you, Judge.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come back to this. Let's do that later. Okay? No, I don't. I think they did look at. Hey, well, what do you guys do in fire rescue? He's waiting for you to go from a gash in his elbow. He's waiting for you to gash in his elbow. What do you guys do grabbing fire rescue? Yeah, we're attached to the boat. We should be able to talk about it. I'm going to fire rescue.
At that time, it was activated in covert, and to remind me that the body cam is working, it'll rumble on my chest, and that's that rumbling noise you guys are hearing.
How long ago that boat? Yeah, I owned the boat. And how many hours? You had to put hours down. Hours on it. I know. That boat. All year, pretty much. How long have you been boating? All year. You had all the safety equipment on the boat, right? Yeah, I actually checked it because I had some people on the jail and make sure everything's nice. So we have the only owner of that boat, put all the hours on it, into that channel thousands of times. sign that in a minute. No, that's what I really want to dig into. I want to know what caused the accident. So we'll sign that, and then right now, we're pulling the boat out ourselves. We're going to take it to our I can't not tell you about these things. I just want to pull it out now. Yeah, we're pulling it out now. We're going to put it on a trailer. We're going to lock it behind a gate at my office. There's a bunch of purses and stuff in there. That's why I need an inventory search too, so I can get all the purses, all the bags, all the personal belongings out of there too. Yeah, I mean, what's going to be there is everyone's personal belongings. Let me get the paper and pad so I can write down what the time goes like. So I walk there. And then in a minute, I'm going to ask for a written statement from you and then a seating chart of where everybody to your recollection was sitting on the boat. That'll be a minute. Real quick, let me go get that one form. You want to go talk to your daughter real quick? You want to welcome to? I'll be back on 5 minutes here. Over top.
What time did you stop speaking with the defendant to go and get some other forms?
9:13 p.m.
The recording that we just heard, is that exactly the way that you and the defendant were interacting with each other?
Yes.
At the time that you're talking with him, is he showing any overt signs of being impaired by alcohol?
No.
Is he being cooperative with you?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, is he volunteering to give you information?
Yes, ma'am.
And did he express any kind of concern for the people that were his passengers?
Yes, ma'am.
Did it seem legitimate?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, at that time when you're speaking with George Pino, do you have any idea what his GPS is going to tell you?
No, ma'am.
At that moment in time, are you thinking in any way that he's a criminal suspect?
No, ma'am.
At that time, when he gave you this, explanation that there was some other vessel that caused this crash, did you have any reason at that moment to doubt what he was saying to you?
No, ma'am.
So at the end of that exchange, do you then wind up ultimately maybe talking with some colleagues, but then getting papers that you needed?
Yes, ma'am.
What were the papers that you needed?
Consent to search form.
Okay. What's a consent to search form?
It's a voluntary form that the individual signed to give us access to look at whatever we put on it. So GPSs, hatches, engine data, just so we can do a thorough investigation to look over the boat.
Now, while you went to go get these papers, where is the defendant?
He is still on the island. He's checking on the girls. He's talking to other people all around him.
Is he handcuffed?
No, ma'am.
Are the police officers on either side of him escorting him around?
No, ma'am.
Is he able to wander around freely with the other girls that were there?
Yes, ma'am.
About how long were you gone?
I was gone for roughly 20 minutes
Okay. Where was it that you had to go to get these papers?
to my patrol vessel.
Is that basically your, like a floating office for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, when you step away from the defendant, do you mute your microphone?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain why?
We mute our microphones when we're not discussing anything with the public. We're speaking to other colleagues, law enforcement, first responders. Might be sensitive subjects, sensitive matters. So we have the ability to mute it when we're speaking to other law enforcement, not the public.
Was it your intention when you re-engaged with the defendant to unmute your microphone?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you forget to do that right off the bat?
I did.
Okay. But did you at some point during that second interchange?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, did your body-worn camera capture some images of the defendant while he was interacting with the other girls and on that island?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that one of the clips that you reviewed earlier this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
For the record, I'm going to be publishing the clip labeled 3 Elliott Key Harbor.
Do you have transcript?
No, you don't. Not this one. And at this time, is your microphone on mute?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he have any bandages on his body?
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
On his head.
Your Honor, may the witness have permission to step down for a moment?
Yes. Can you keep this up, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, are you conversing with your colleague?
I am.
That person we just saw with the item on his head, who's that?
That's Mr. Pino.
Lieutenant, at one point, you see on your body-worn camera what looks to be like the top of a clipboard or something like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe for the jurors, what is it that you're holding in your hand?
So that clipboard is where I keep a lot of the documents, such as consent to search forms, written statements. It's so I don't have to go back and forth from my vote to Mr. Pino, trying to bring all the paperwork in, so we can sit down and take care of everything we can take care of.
Can you describe what it looks like?
Yeah, it's a plastic, looks like a folder, your clipboard on top, and on the inside it has a hollow, so I can follow the paperwork in there, so the elements like the sun, rain can't fix the paper.
Thank you. After that 20-minute or so period of time when you had gone to go get these additional papers in your clipboard of sorts, do you communicate again with the defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you make contact with him?
He's sitting on a bench with two young ladies that were passengers of the vessel. I asked him if he'd come back over to the park bench that we spoke at earlier.
And what was his reaction?
Cooperative.
Did you have to entice him to come with you?
No, ma'am.
He just instantly said, okay, no problem?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have to assist him at this point walking over to the table?
No, ma'am.
When you are with him at that table, is your body-worn camera still recording?
Still video recording.
But what about audio?
No, it is not.
Okay. Did you, in fact, show to the defendant a form called the consent to search form?
Yes, ma'am.
The record I'm showing counsel states 1P for identification. Lieutenant, I'm showing you states 1P. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it have your handwriting on it?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this an enlarged copy of the consent to search that you showed to the defendant on September 4th, 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
The record I move states 1P for identification and evidence.
No objection.
1P, marked for identification, becomes State Exhibit 100 in evidence.
Lieutenant, would you please read what is on that consent to search form?
It says, I, George Pino, owner, operator of fishing vessel, documentation, DO 1294732, having been informed of my constitutional rights to not have a search of my property hereinafter mentioned without a search warrant and my right to refuse to consent to such a search, do voluntarily consent to search the following equipment: GPS units, engines, hatches, bags, personal belongings, etc. The above equipment may be searched for all data, including but not limited to waypoints, track lines, marks, routes, events, position data, and dates by special agents or officers of the FCC. Technical assistance such as authorized dealers, technicians, or manufacturers' technicians, or other FWCC enforcement designees. I further understand that anything or any article that may be found during the search may be used as evidence against me in any criminal or civil trial.
Your Honor, may the witness step down again, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Lieutenant, first off, who fills out the name George Pino up here? And what is this documentation number?
Documentation is an identifier of the vessel that Mr. Pino is operating. It's a federal documentation number, stated in a different way, but that's the federal documentation identifier of the vessel.
Speaking of that vessel, was it in fact taken out of the water that night?
It was not taken out that night.
It took a day or two to get it out.
Yes, sir.
Now I see under here, I voluntarily consent to search of the following equipment. We see GPS units, engines, hatches, bags, personal belongings, etc. Who wrote that in?
I did.
At the bottom, I see a signature. Who wrote that signature?
The defendant.
Okay. And what was the date and the time that this was signed?
9/4/2022 at 21:31 hours, which is 9:31 p.m.
Okay, and then down here, the name of the person giving permission. Who wrote that?
I did.
And I see name of person with missing signature. Who's that?
That would be me.
And did you fill out your name?
I did.
Below that, it asks address and telephone number of person giving permission. Who wrote that information?
I did.
And at the bottom, again, there's another signature of person giving permission. Who wrote that
The
signature?
defendant.
And then the signature of the person witnessing permission?
That would be my signature.
Okay, thank you. Once the defendant gave you his permission for you to search his vessel, did you then advise him of what's commonly referred to as his Miranda rights?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain to the jury why you did that?
The reason I advised him of his Miranda rights was just in case he says something along the lines of, I had a copious amount of drugs in my system, I drank something, I did this on purpose. I want to make sure that he's advised of his rights before he makes any such comment like that.
Was he under arrest at that point in time?
No, ma'am.
No handcuffs on him?
No, ma'am.
No physical force used against him, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay. In order to advise him of his Miranda rights, did you have handy with you what's commonly referred to, I think, as a Miranda card?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the jurors what's a Miranda card?
It's a state-issued piece of plastic that we usually keep in our vest or in our pocket on our person. It has the Miranda warnings written onto it with a couple questions on the back end to ask the individual that we're reading the rights to.
showing counsel states 5R for identification. Lieutenant, I'm showing you states 5R. Is this a photocopy of the Miranda card
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you would have advised the defendant with?
Yes, ma'am.
This time I move states 5R for identification and evidence.
Judge, just so we want to preserve all the prior objections, including the pretrial motions to this area.
Absolutely it is, and no objection admitted.
I mean, we just have a standing objection, so I don't need to.
Sure, no problem.
5R, mark for identification, becomes a state exhibit 101.
Lieutenant, would you read from this document what you read to the defendant in the same type of tone that you read it to him?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him or her present with you while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish. If you consent to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you will still have the right to stop answering at any time. Do you understand each of these rights? With these rights in mind, do you wish to talk to us now?
Okay. Did the defendant ever tell you, no, I am not willing to talk to you?
No, ma'am.
So he's still being cooperative with you, is that fair to say?
Yes, ma'am.
Lieutenant, I have 2 pages here. Is the actual card, like, there's printing on the front and the back?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point while you're advising the defendant of his rights, do you remember, oh gosh, I forgot to turn on my microphone?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you turn it on right then and there?
Yes, ma'am.
And once you hit the microphone on your camera, is the remainder of that exchange with the defendant recorded?
Yes, ma'am.
For the record, I am now publishing the clip that is titled 4, Statement 3. Your Honor, may the witness have permission to step down again, please?
Yes.
Lieutenant, what are we looking at right now?
My patrol vessel.
Is this where you went to retrieve that consent form?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you in fact start filling it out?
Yes,
there?
ma'am.
And that's the clipboard you described for us?
Yes, ma'am.
saw a young person with a life jacket. Was that one of the girls that had been brought back?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the defendant in this group here?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a little blurry, but as we approach. Who was he interacting with at that point?
Two of the passengers in the vessel.
Was there anybody from fire rescue with him also?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's this?
I have to look at my notes.
I'm sorry, can't hear you, sir.
Sorry.
I said I have to look at my notes. It's one of the passengers.
On this officer here, we see a green light on his light on camera. What does that tell you about covert on or covert off?
It means covert's off. That's so you can see that blinking light I was talking about earlier, that can be a distraction. You have the ability to cover that up so there's no blinking light, and that means the covert is on.
Is that the form that we see in the bottom of the screen?
Yes, ma'am, that's the consent to search warrant.
Was it rocky up there?
It was.
Is this the picnic table at which you speaking with the defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
And at this point, is he actually walking with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you guys side by side?
Not directly side by side.
But we can't see him because he's not in the field of view.
Correct.
What are you doing at this point?
Just describing to the consent to search form and giving him his instructions with it.
you're going over this form, the consent to search form. Is he giving you any impression that he's impaired by alcohol?
No, ma'am.
At this point, has the defendant signed that consent form?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you now start to transition into beginning to get ready to read him his rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And at the bottom part of the screen, are we going to see a little bit of that card that you were using?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that it there? It's actually toward the top of the
You have
screen.
the right to talk to the lawyer, have the present with the lawyer, any question, or to hide them. Well, we appointed representative, how many questions you wish, you can send in 10 questions now, without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop answering at any time. Do you understand these rights? When you have any rights in mind, we wish to talk to you. I have to do different things. I have to do a voting exit report, and I have to do our injuries. So, just in case you say something along the line of like you're about to drop or something like that, Great, sir. Your address one more time? Your home number? 7387. Is it different than yourself? Same. Do you have your work number? Okay. I'll try to give you as much light as I possibly can. But pretty much where you were, like what you told me, where you were going, how fast you were going, what happened in the wake to the best of knowledge, and write as best you can. I know you're not going to give me a well-written book, just the best of your knowledge. And then how long have you been driving that boat? How long have you been driving boats? That you check your safety. Everything is local. Check your safety. Every single thing. No, right, all that, please. This is the last thing. No, that's fine. That's fine. Right.
I started with most physician manual. So, what's the first thing you want? The diner?
No, we'll do that on the back. We'll flip it over and we'll just draw it out. Give me from before the accident, so we were going here. Your investment's not insured, correct? It is insured? Do you know the policy number right here? 91. It is insured. You are the policy number up front, is that? The policy number.
Lieutenant, you hear somebody say 9112?
Correct.
What's 9112?
That's my call sign.
Okay, can you explain to the jurors real quick, like, how it is when you're communicating on police radio?
So we communicate via call sign, so every unit, every supervisor has a different number, so what you're hearing.
Stand towards you.
So what you're hearing there is, that was a supervisor that was on land asking about the insurance company for the vessel that was in the accident. The reason for that is, we're trying to get that boat floated and get it to land, and it costs a lot of money to get that done. So what he's working on, while I'm speaking to the defendant, is getting the towboat or seaboat we usually use to get out there and go through their insurance, so it doesn't cost their agency the money to get that floated.
LTV vessel is insured. It's through Progressive.
What does LT mean?
Lieutenant.
What is it that the defendant is doing right now?
He's filling out a sworn written statement.
Did he seem to have any difficulty writing this statement?
No.
Are you wearing a kill switch? I'm just trying to see anything because I don't want them to turn off. It's going to be after the accident. So I'm trying to
they're facing this straight up.
The girls did the same thing for us, and they had a better knowledge of where they were sitting up front. I was just not going to get it.
Yeah. I'll do the best I can.
Okay, I mean, sure, I know.
I'll do it like,
Best you can.
yeah. I mean, do they remember this or am I? They did not say.
No, they only, the girls up here knew where they were all sitting.
So they didn't know it was going on.
They didn't know it was back here.
I know that.
Yeah, they have. And the three individuals that were taken, the white and two girls, remember which ones they were?
It's Lucy.
Lucy was up front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lucy got so me and Lucy got the other two girls right here. And she got taken. So it's the people that got where I got these. And then go over the right here. Go over. I mean, got the Lucy were up here. Yeah. I know. This is over here. So I think it's here.
You don't have to go around. You just want to I want to get you, first before I let you go, I just want to make sure that your wife is at Jackson South, so I don't send you to the wall. Yes. But you swear that everything you just told me was the truth on this statement? Are you just saying the whole truth?
Two questions. First off, at that moment when you say to the defendant, you know, I want to send you to the right place, you can stand up. Were you signifying to him, like, you're not going to keep him in custody?
No, I want to make sure he got back to his wife. He was worried about everybody that was injured, specifically his wife. He asked about it.
Okay, now, let me just back this up about 10 seconds. I want to ask you about this.
Jackson South, so I don't send you to the wall. Yes. But you swear that everything you just told me was the truth on this statement? Are you just saying the whole truth? Yes.
As a law enforcement officer, are you permitted to swear people in to tell the truth?
I am.
Let me now find.
You want me to try to put the initials before I remember? Because I do remember.
We'll come back to
I'm
that.
looking at it, maybe see people facing people.
We'll come back to it in a couple days. Time. I can put. Sure. I want to get you to your wife. I don't want to change it up.
I don't know what I remember, because I remember. Because they were telling me that, they were telling me stuff. So, his daughter was here, CB. I think God was here. And then, really? I don't remember. I mean, I know they were up here.
I'm going to ask you to write one more thing for me so I don't forget it. After the accident happened, you went on the boat to
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I don't recall if she was like under or she was right next to me. They were so crazy.
Could you write which individual that was?
I was pretty sure that was
Could you write that on the website? You write that after accident, I found Lucy and supported Lucy or whatever.
yeah,
the hell was
it was like she may have come out of that boat right when I was gonna go under. And when I went under, she was like right next to me. And I think because I got into the boat where the cockpit was. First, in this area. So if the boat's upside down, the damn is here. Okay? The boat is here, and I was here. Okay, and I saw everybody over here floating, and then the boat approached.
Where, if she wasn't in the boat, where was she by the damaged area of the boat?
It was like, I would say,
Could you put a little dot right there for me? Put just her initials? Just those ones, it's fine, that's fine. And then
so then the boat came,
yep.
and then they left, and then I stayed, and I continued.
And that boat just took Lucy?
And then I continued swimming, looking for people. And then
So Lucy was the only one who went the first one. And then the other two went, the other way.
So not those, I don't,
That's fine. That's fine. Will you write that
I saw they were ready to be.
Can you write that I was swam up to Lucy and I stayed with Lucy until the boat came? Can you write that one, please? Okay, let me go hit my radio real quick and make sure I know exactly what I'm saying. Can you just verify what hospitals? 9210. Especially specifically with the older.
Oh, actually, I just wanted to ask you a question.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have to take very, actually, just one. Before we can just go. How much longer do I need to do that? Okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, put the, just one juror. Because we're gonna take a break in about another 30 minutes. So if there's one juror, that's fine. Send one juror in the back.
Does everybody have to know?
Just sit for a moment. Just a moment.
May we approach while this is going on?
Do I need my court reporting list?
That would be
Yes.
helpful,
All
yeah.
right. Court is still in session, thank you. All right, I think we're ready to proceed, thank you.
Thank you.
And, we'll take a break for all the jurors and everyone else in about 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Lieutenant, with the court's permission, if you could step down for a minute, I want to ask you if you can, when we saw that first interaction between you and the defendant and he's on the boat, what time was that?
That's 2816, which is 816.
I'm sorry, I can't hear the testimony.
8:16 p.m.
That's when you first start talking with him about where his boat is going to be?
Correct.
showing council states 1L for identification. Lieutenant, I'm showing you states 1L for identification. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this an enlarged photocopy of the actual written statement that the defendant gave to you that we just saw the body-worn camera footage of?
Yes, ma'am.
I move states 1L for identification and evidence.
Standing objection to this subject matter.
Yes, sir. Over objection is it.
1L, marked for identification, becomes State Exhibit 102.
102.
2.
Thank you.
Is there a place for the defendant to sign signifying that the information here is true?
Yes, ma'am.
Where? Right where my finger is?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you please read for us the information that the defendant wrote down that he swore was true?
Going back to Ocean ORC through channel, past boat on left side by my boat. Vessel to the right to avoid big waves. Coming back into wave. I lost control of steering wheel as boat was going through the big waves. I was ejected from the boat. In the back of the boat, I saw Mia and Sarah, my wife Ceci next to me, and the others in the front of the boat. I believe we were traveling at 40 to 45 RPM. I have owned the boat since early 2020. I swam to Lucy and stayed until boat came. Then I stayed looking for others inside the boat.
The record I'm showing counsel now states 5I for identification. Lieutenant, I'm showing you now states 5I for identification. You indicated something about on the back of the form, something was going to be drafted.
Yeah, seating chart.
Okay, and does this show both the front and the back of the original?
Yes, ma'am.
So at this time, Judge, the state would move states 5I for identification and evidence.
Objection.
Same objection.
Admitted over an objection.
5I, marked for ID, becomes State Exhibit 103.
Lieutenant, did you actually get to witness with your own eyes as the defendant was filling this out?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you be able to explain to the jurors what the various writings on here
Yes, ma'am.
were done?
Thank you. Any step in.
This is your picture of a boat?
Yes.
How long have you been boating?
Almost all my life.
Okay. Can you walk us through? What was it that the defendant was explaining to you with this diagram?
I asked him to use initials, first name and last name of people that were on the boat. The goal was trying to find the actual seating chart where everybody was on the boat and see if he had any remnants of it. So, as you can see, he put GP for himself for Pino, CP for Ceci Pino, his wife. In the back he has Mia and Sarah. Then up here he has KP and CP, Coco and Kati.
About 2 days after your interaction with George Pino at Elliott Key, was it the case that that boat that was involved in this crash was salvaged from the water?
It was.
Did you, after it was salvaged from the water, conduct what's known as an inventory search of that vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain to the jurors what is an inventory search?
Inventory search are used to find any valuables, watches, high valuable things to make sure they're on the boat. We're looking for safety gear. We have the consent to search, so we're looking through personal belongings, hatches, the GPSs, the engines, trying to figure out what happened on that day.
In the course of that search, did you take photographs of the vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
The record I'm showing counsel states 5J, 5M, and 5K. Lieutenant, showing you states 5J, 5M, and 5K. Do these fairly and accurately depict the vessel once it had been salvaged and you were conducting your inventory search?
Yes, ma'am.
The state would move the aforementioned exhibits into evidence.
Subject to prior objection, Judge.
For objection?
C5J, marked for AD, becomes State Exhibit 104. 5M, State Exhibit 105. And 5N, 106. 5K, 106.
I'm sorry,
5J, 104. 5M, 105. 5K, 106.
All right, Lieutenant, with the court's permission, you may step down and
yes.
first off, as to exhibit 105. Can you explain to the members of the jury, what is this photograph depicting?
That is a picture of the helm or the steering wheel and throttle bar. There's 250 holes here where the GPS units were. This will be depicting where the operator was sitting during the operation of the vessel.
Lieutenant, I think you're aware that yesterday our jurors got a chance to actually see this vessel.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you there when that happened?
Yes, ma'am.
And so were the jurors able to actually see for themselves what the operator's eye view would be from the helm?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's basically what you're depicting here?
Yes, ma'am.
In terms of state's exhibits numbers 104 and 106, can you explain to the jurors what we're looking at here?
In front of the center console of the vessel.
Now, if there are a couple of people walking in front of the vessel in that bow area, is it roomy? Is it spacious?
Okay, not much room at all to move around.
Well, I'm going to ask you if we have evidence here in State's Exhibit number 11 that in the seat that's designated number 9 is the name Lucy.
Yes, ma'am.
Using State's Exhibit number 106, would you be able to corroborate or show where seat number 9 that says Lucy, where would that be on this?
This would be right here on the center, right front of the center console on this padded seat.
So if I write the name Lucy right here, would that be accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's it for now. Thank you. Lieutenant, in addition to actually photographing the vessel itself, did you photograph the contents of anything that was recovered from that vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing counsel states 5N, 5O, 5P, and 5Q for identification. Do State's Exhibits 5N, 5O and 5P depict a location where items of alcoholic containers were recovered from, and the items themselves.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I would move the aforementioned exhibits into evidence.
Subject to prior objection.
The video of prior objection.
5N, mark for identification, becomes State Exhibit 107. 5O, 108. 5P, 109.
Lieutenant, if you could step down again, please. Okay, Lieutenant, so in the back part of the vessel, behind where the helm would be, there appears to be a place where there's two round patches. Well, can you describe what that is?
It's a wash station. They would usually have a hose on this left little pole here, and the other one's usually used for trash.
Okay. And did you look in the area where the trash would be, if there was anything in there?
Yes, ma'am.
In State's Exhibit number 108, is that the top of what you saw when you opened that trash hatch?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you empty that hatch?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you photograph what was in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Does State's 109 depict the items that were in that place?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you in a position to say that George Pino drank all this alcohol?
No, ma'am.
Do you remember exactly how many alcohol containers were recovered from that?
61.
And I wanted to ask you also, there are two exhibits that were already admitted into evidence as State's Exhibits numbers 20 and 21. Do you remember seeing these on the vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
Were these other alcohol containers that were recovered from the vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
What are they?
Looks like a type of champagne in a liqueur.
Additionally, did you recover some flares that were on the defendant's vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you State's Exhibit number 5Q. Is this a photograph of the flares you recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
I would move 5Q for identification and evidence.
No objection.
Without objection.
5Q, mark for identification, becomes State Exhibit 110.
Forgive me, subject to the prior objection.
Yes, sir.
This might sound obvious, but what are flares for on vessels?
Signaling for distress.
What do you do if your boat becomes disabled and you have flares?
You shoot off the flares, it'll create a large bulb in the sky, bright in color, so other boaters can see it. And it's known around the boating community that that's a sign of distress and that people need help.
What was the expiration date on these flares?
October 20th of 19.
2019?
Yes.
When did you do this?
2022.
I think I remember that you asked the defendant if he had all the safety equipment that he needed on his vessel.
I did.
Would this be considered safety equipment?
It would.
Is it safe if it's expired?
No.
Judge, this might be a good time in the testimony if that's all right with the court.
Okay, could you keep going to the new subject?
Correct.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been here around 40 minutes, around 45 minutes. Let's take our round first at this time. If you would please put your notepads inside the envelopes, if you would. For the Senator 141. So it's 12:35. Let's go to 140. 140 for lunch. When we return from lunch, please go to the Georgia room on the 7th floor. We're inside for me to come and get you. I ask everyone to stay in the courtroom while excuse the jury just for a moment, and a chance to get down the hall. Please remember to wear your badge as well displayed at all times. No conversations with anyone. If anyone attempts to speak with you or in your presence about the case, please advise Renee of that. All right? Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Advise the witness you are under oath, you remain under oath, and cannot speak with anyone regarding the testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'll have you excused at this time until 1:40.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taking our lunch break until 1:40. Thank you.
Judge, we have a matter we need to address before the jury comes in at sidebar.
Do I have the witness step outside?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Yes, okay. Back on.
Your Honor, during the course of my publication or publishing of the defendant's, shall we say, second statement,
Okay.
not when he was, not after Miranda, and not when he was first asked about, who owns the boat, where does the boat come from, but the one that would have otherwise been covered under the accident report privilege. In the course of publishing that, I noticed that the transcript that was handed out reflected what the defense asked the state to redact, which was any reference to either the lieutenant's request for the defendant's blood sample or his refusal or his decision to decline giving a blood sample. All of that was redacted, and the redactions are properly reflected in the transcript. Unfortunately, I realized as we were playing it, though I feel like I looked at these videos over and over again, a little portion of what was agreeable to the defense was we over-redacted it. And so on page 2,
Hold on.
yes, of statement 2,
Let me pull it up.
Statement 2, transcript 2. Yeah. This is
Go ahead. Page 2, statement 2.
yes, so the part where it says 1, 2, 3, 5 lines down, you'll see WT
Right.
for the
1, 2, 3, 4. 5.
and it begins with the lieutenant saying, I don't know about that yet. So the first thing I'm going to do, talk to you about, there's a boating accident, a serious injury.
Okay.
The next few sentences or so are redacted, and those are the sentences where he indicated that I like to ask, all that. So those were properly redacted, and then we pick back up with the defendant then saying, I had 2 beers in response to the lieutenant saying, I would like to get a blood sample. For whatever reason, unfortunately, from that until where the lieutenant says you're allowed to drink alcohol and drive a boat.
It's not illegal to boat and drive. It's an accident.
Right. All of that from the 2 beers down to where the lieutenant says you're allowed, for some reason, those were not included on the video.
It should not have been
Redacted.
redacted.
It should have been in. Unfortunately, I think there was a miscommunication between myself.
Okay, well, let me figure it out.
Yeah.
In the video,
Yes.
it's shown to the jury.
Yes.
Did they see when it said, GP, I had 2 beers? See and hear. They didn't see and hear that.
They only saw it on the transcript, which is not evidence. It was not included on the actual DVD, which is.
And then the next line, where
Lieutenant. The lieutenant.
Our lieutenant
Yeah.
says, and it's not illegal, is also not there.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So,
Keep going, Judge.
all right, go ahead.
The next sentence,
Yeah, it's not illegal to drink a beer or a couple of beers and drive.
Right.
that's also not included in the
Was
recording.
included, so,
And more. More was excluded.
okay, go ahead.
Also,
What
the
else
part
was excluded from
where it says
the
I
evidence?
feel perfect in the way my mind was, that also was redacted, which it should not have been.
Right.
And then the next part, you're allowed to drink alcohol and drive a boat. There's nothing saying that. Are you bleeding anywhere now? That's where it picks back up.
When does it pick back up?
When the defendant says my elbow.
Okay, so here's what you're going to need to do.
I think we did it.
Okay.
So we now have.
Would have to, I don't know, tell me what you propose.
So the issue is that Ms. Adams, when she drew from the witness, from the testimony about the 2 beers, it was Ms. Adams characterizing it as a spontaneous statement. I think that's where it spontaneously said, and we can go to the transcript, but
Okay.
spontaneously.
So,
We all know it was not spontaneously.
okay.
It was in response to several sentences of dialogue, including when the witness, Lieutenant Thompson, says, it just answers more questions if there was alcohol in your system or not.
Okay.
We know it being a blood draw, and so the exact quote was, it just answers more questions if there was alcohol in your system or not, which I'm not sure it was, so I'd like to ask permission to draw your blood. It's completely up to you.
Okay.
And then Mr. Pino says, I had 2 beers.
Okay.
Okay. So our concern is that the impression has been left with the jury that Mr. Pino just blurted out, I had 2 beers.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming, that it was something so spontaneous that just came out of Mr. Pino. So that has to be addressed.
And so the way that I interpreted spontaneous is, at no time did the lieutenant say, have you been drinking? How much did you have to drink? The defendant
That's
volunteers
the way
that.
But that's maybe the way you interpret it. So how do we
Well,
How do
it's,
I clarify it?
I think what we can do is just either play, we were able to reinsert all of the part that was initially over-redacted. So I have a copy of that. So I can either replay that and just say, Lieutenant, you know, is this what happened? And the jury can follow along again and just leave it at that. Whether I characterize it as spontaneous or not, you know, like it's kind of like a, you know, tomato situation, you know? Maybe the jury thinks it was spontaneous, maybe they don't, but it's not in direct relation to a question that was posed by the lieutenant.
Well, okay. We know it was perhaps in relation to a question though that was deemed suppressible, that whole area of inquiry.
Correct.
Okay, so let me try to wrap my head around how and what instructions, if any, I should give to the jury that might clear this up.
May I make one possible suggestion, which would be this, that the court instructs the jury that there was a technical issue with the video that was played, and we are now going to play the proper version of it with nothing further, and I'm not going to characterize what he says one way or the other.
Well, and I'll also instruct them that I remind you what the lawyer's asking questions, that's not evidence. It's what the witness says. So this witness is not going to say it was a spontaneous statement by Mr. Pino.
Right. So what I would propose to give context to the statement about 2 beers, because the prosecutor actually, I think, said to the witness, you didn't ask him about alcohol, drinking alcohol, and that Mr. Pino spontaneously said he had 2 beers. I think the simple way to correct it is, as we're going to play the correct version, it just be prefaced with a question by the prosecutor. Something simple as, Lieutenant Thompson, you told Mr. Pino you were investigating whether alcohol was involved, and here's his response. Something as simple as that.
That makes sense. When I think about it. 'Cause
It's not that I have any problem with that. I just worry, you know, does that somehow... Because when this is happening, the lieutenant is not asking questions. He's just explaining why he's going to want to get a sample.
No, but, right, he's explaining why, but the response, and I think we can agree, that Mr. Pino had was really in response to Lieutenant Thompson bringing up this whole idea, and he was forthright in that once Lieutenant Thompson brought up the idea, and refusal that doesn't come in front of the jury.
What I could certainly do is, and you know, with the witness here, hopefully, I could certainly ask of him, you know, Lieutenant, at some point, did an issue of alcohol come up? Yes. And just leave it at that, and then just play this.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah, that the investigator, now lieutenant, raised the issue of alcohol, and in response, Mr. Pino said, and we play the tape. Something simple.
You're playing it, and you're going to stop it at a certain point. You're going to play it from the beginning again. You got to play the whole thing.
Yeah, I understand that.
So you'll stop it before
Yes.
you get there, and then you'll make a note for yourself.
Okay.
You'll ask a question, and then you can handle anything else on cross if you
Right.
think that.
So-
And I would give the jury instruction on a technical issue. We're going to basically redo that and remind them that, remember, you know, what the lawyers say in their questions is not evidence. The evidence comes from the witness.
That's fine, and I would propose that if we start from the beginning, it's only a minute and a half or so, a minute and 40 seconds. Stop after the sentence last played, which ended with the words, a serious injury.
Right.
That's when the next question to Lieutenant Thompson would be, at that point, you raised the issue with him about alcohol, and the response was recorded, and here we go. And that takes away.
Let it play.
Absolutely. That's perfectly
Okay, great.
And Lieutenant Thompson's right here.
That's why I
So
thought it'd be
he
great to have
understands
him.
the plan.
And what I would do, just for brevity's sake, I have a jump drive that has the corrected video and audio that council has been able to see over the break. So what I would seek to do is just ask for it.
Substitute out.
Yes, it's,
What was the exhibit number again?
hold on.
Wait, I have to see something.
And while she's looking, to be clear, we're not opening any doors to his refusal, to the defendant's refusal by doing it.
Absolutely not.
I'm correct?
You're not opening
This is an
the doors.
what is
You're
Thank you.
correct.
Thank you.
Because that was,
I have a pet peeve about double negatives.
that was,
Thank
your
you.
request in limine or to suppress was granted in that regard.
Oh, I know what this is. The defense has it.
This is my computer. This is your life. I don't know who it is, but it's not yours.
So, this be next as a Friday. Thanks. So, Your Honor, if I may, the corrected audio and visual of the defendant's statement to Lieutenant Thompson is listed for identification as states 5U. And I would seek, hopefully without objection from the defense, other than their prior raised objections, to move 5U for identification into evidence, and then be able to publish that with the caveat that I will preface the two-beer statement with a question to the lieutenant.
Right, aren't we substituting what was already?
Yes, but just to make things a little bit,
I can do it right now. You don't have to do it. Yeah, right, I want to do it now.
you want us to put this statement on the original jump drive?
No. I thought you were going to switch it out.
The only thing that this jump drive has, Your Honor,
Oh,
is
that
the
one
second
statement.
statement. The one that's in
Gotcha.
evidence has,
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
That's another exhibit.
okay, yes.
Okay.
So I'm now moving states 5U for identification and evidence.
Subject to prior objections and perhaps an instruction from the court to explain to the jury that it was omitted and we're now giving it for the jury. The jury may have seen it in the transcript, so to clarify for the jury, they may have already seen this in the transcript, even though the transcript is not evident.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. And what number is it going to be?
5U, March 5D, States Exhibit 111.
111. And when you begin to ask the questions, I'll probably tell them anyway.
It's in
But you're advised that it's now State's Exhibit 111.
Okay.
Okay?
Judge, there's another matter, which, just to, so we can go through the whole afternoon.
I'm going to pop his head in any minute with my jury. So is this something with regard to his testimony?
Yes,
Should he be sitting here?
I don't know. It has to do with anticipated cross-examination questions.
Okay, so when you finish your direct,
Okay,
which will be how much longer?
not much.
Okay, we'll stop for a minute. We'll come sidebar,
Okay,
and then we can talk about what you want to talk about.
thank you.
Okay, very good.
All rise.
Please be seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you had a nice lunch. During the playing of the body-worn camera evidence from Lieutenant Thompson, there was a technical issue with regard to what is essentially the second statement in conversation between Mr. Pino and Lieutenant Thompson. That technical issue has been resolved. There was what you might have been reading on the transcripts was actually not heard on the video. So that's been corrected, and what's going to happen now is the corrected statement is going to be played for you. There'll be a few questions about that. The transcript can be handed out again, which would be number 2 transcript. Oh no, wait, it's number 2 transcript,
Yes.
right? Okay, number 2 transcript. Now, I remind you, the transcript is not the evidence. The evidence is the video, the audio video, okay? In addition, let me remind you that what the lawyer is asking their questions is not the evidence. The evidence comes from physical evidence and or testimony of the witnesses. Okay? All right.
For the record, I'm now going to publish State's Exhibit 111. Your Honor, may the lieutenant step down while this is played? Thank you.
Work at FWC. I do all voting accidents that are serious. Anytime someone says somebody gets life-flighted, that's when I come. So, right now, no update. My officers are just getting to the hospital. So, no update on it. They all went to the same spot. My office, medical staff, won't give an update until my guys get there. They won't do it for us. They don't know who's actually calling. So, my guys are about 10, 15 minutes away. So, everyone knows over there. Throw it. All the girls? Or they're over there? There's some there. There's some who's over there. Unless, no, there's nowhere that they move on over there. All those girls are fine. They're a little short. So, right now, last I had an update was her wife. She had a great hit. She's conscious, but she's still there. She's saying she just went down last time. I didn't have on anybody. I was all but from all over Sandbar. So, someone told me that the window that was on the camp, she was there on the boat with my wife. So, I was getting it. I'm still getting all the pieces that she was getting. I don't know if that happens.
Lieutenant, I want to ask you if during this time, did any kind of issue about alcohol come up? Okay.
Can we get a pause, Your Honor?
Just pause it for a minute.
Sure.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the portion that was not played before, and the question was asked, questions about alcohol, and this wasn't played for you before. All right? And this is the evidence.
We'll come back to this. Let's get that page. Okay? I don't want you to leave around. No, I do. I need to get that looked at. Hey, well, what do you guys are doing? Fire rescue? He's bleeding pretty good from a gash in his elbow. He's bleeding pretty good from a gash in his elbow. Well, what do you guys do? Grab me? Fire rescue? Yeah, we're attached to the boat. Just be also talking about here a second. I'm going to have fire rescue. Yeah, if he has questions, he'll come. You're heavy breathing. I want you sitting down. I don't want you falling over these rocks. Okay. Come sit down for me. No, I understand, but I've heard that shallow breathing before. I've seen people fall over, and the last thing I need is for you to fall over these rocks. So take a seat for me, my friend. So are these all your daughters? Is your daughter on the boat? That's your daughter right there? Okay. And all of them were her friends? It's my daughter's birthday. Okay. With our to have a celebration right now. We're heading back. I mentioned to you, we're going through that channel, not the last one. Wait, watch out. You can guesstimate how fast you're How many times have you gone through that show? Okay. How many hours do you have on this mission? How long have you been on that boat?
Your Honor?
Yeah, on the boat. And how many hours? You have to put hours. How many hours behind the boat do you have?
So I think that resolved the issue of the missing portion.
Yes, that was what was missing previously. All right, we'll continue on.
Pardon me?
So we're going to conclude that.
Thank you.
Very good.
So Lieutenant, up to now, we've talked about the fact that you spoke with George Pino on the evening of September 4th of 2022, and we talked about the inventory of the vessel that was done once it was salvaged from the bottom of the bay, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's talk now a little bit about something that occurred on June the 9th of last year. Did you and other people involved in law enforcement try to think of a way to explain or express to the jury what the defendant's driving pattern, for lack of a better term, was through the Cutter Bank Channel on the afternoon of September 4th, 2022?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We conducted a reconstruction as close as we could.
Prior to doing the reconstruction, were any thoughts given about trying to actually bring the jurors through on the channel?
There were thoughts.
And?
Objection, Your Honor.
Too dangerous to bring the jury out there.
Okay. What was the overall plan to try to show the jury as accurately as possible the route that the defendant's vessel took on that afternoon up to leading to it actually hitting a channel marker?
Yes, on May 30th, ASA Adams reached out to me asking if this was even a possibility. Told her that logistically there's going to be a lot of moving parts to get this done, specifically around safety reasons. So we had to make sure we had safety vessels, we block off channels, we had to make sure the weather was right that day, the right individuals were there, that we had access to Key Biscayne's airfield. It's a state park, so no drones can be flown. So we had to talk to the FAA for the drones. There was a lot of moving parts for it.
Could you explain to the jurors what the idea was in terms of how this path would be recreated?
So we had the GPS data from the units that were on the defendant's vessel that showed certain track marks and speed that the vessel was operating on September 4th. So we used multiple buoys as points of speed increase or direction change towards the channel marker.
So if there was a track point, say, that indicated that the defendant was going 43 miles per hour, is there a way using GPS to put the buoy like really close to where that track point is?
Yes, ma'am. We used a certified handheld GPS following the exact coordinates from the units from the vessel to match it to the exact spot that we were going to drop the buoy.
Okay. And then in this particular case, were there two last track marks or track points from the defendant's vessel up until it crashed into that channel marker?
There was.
And did a buoy get placed in each of the locations where those last two track points were?
Yes, ma'am.
And so what was the idea behind piloting a vessel past those buoys which represented the track points?
The idea was to video record so we could show the jury of the points of acceleration that the GPS showed. So the first buoy was a signal for me to accelerate from one speed to another while also maintaining a certain track from one buoy to the next. The second buoy was the last buoy prior to the collision with the channel marker.
Now, the second to last track point, can you describe where within the channel that would have been?
Between channel marker 13A and 13.
Okay. And where was the last buoy or the buoy that represented the last track mark prior to impact?
It was right next to channel marker 15.
Now, in order to try to recreate this, did you have available a police vessel?
I did.
What was the size of that police vessel?
30 feet.
What was the size of the Robalo vessel that was salvaged from the bay in this case?
29 feet.
What were the engines that were on the vessel that was used for this?
Two 300 horsepower Yamaha engines.
What kind of engines were on the Robalo in this case?
Two 300 horsepower Yamaha engines.
Did it seem that your police vessel was a comparable vessel to show the jurors what took place on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to get the police vessel accelerated up to 43 miles per hour at that first buoy.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you then accelerate the vessel to about 47 miles per hour right before you got to that second buoy?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been piloting vessels?
Since I was a young child.
How many times have you piloted toward a steel marker?
Not on purpose.
Okay. Can you talk to the jurors a little bit about what the experience was like trying to recreate a path that you know in real life resulted in the destruction we saw to that vessel in photographs in yesterday? What did you do to manage that?
Objection, reserve a motion.
So,
Okay, hold on. All right. Objection is overruled. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So with those two markers that we spoke about earlier, the first one is to the start getting to a speed of 43 miles an hour. The second channel buoy that we placed is right next to channel marker 15. We had to take in consideration that if I were to take the exact same route, it was near impossible for me to evade that channel marker.
Okay. Before engaging in this reenactment, for lack of a better term, did you have any alcohol to drink?
No, ma'am.
Did you have any minors on the boat with you?
No, ma'am.
Now, did you make several passes through that channel?
Yes, ma'am.
And was there a drone involved?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to show you an exhibit. It's not in evidence, it's a demonstrative aid. It's State's Exhibit 2I. This is not scientific. My channel drawing is as good as your boat drawing. But does this represent kind of the tail end of the Cutter Bank channel?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you be able to use this pen and kind of like show us in cartoon figures almost the route that you basically were taking?
Yes, ma'am.
Where the squiggly line is, does that represent the route that you were taking?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm showing you exhibits that are in evidence as states 23 and 22. Do these accurately depict what channel markers 14 and 15 look like?
Yes, ma'am.
What were the wind and, I guess, sea conditions like when this was done?
Very favorable. Low winds, very slight chop, very small waves on the water.
Was that similar to the weather conditions on the afternoon of September 4th, 2022, Biscayne Bay in the vicinity of Cutter Bank?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you an exhibit which is in evidence now as State's Exhibit number 11. And now I'm going to show you an exhibit which is State's 106. Now, in State's Exhibit 11, there is a seat which is designated as number 9, and there's a name attached to that. What is that name?
Lucy.
May I have that, please? Thank you. And, Your Honor, may the witness step down, please? So if what we're looking at here in exhibit number 11 is a diagram of the seating arrangements of Mr. Pino's vessel on September 4th, 2022. And if what we're looking at here in State's Exhibit number 106 is an actual photograph of where seats 7, 8, and 9 would be.
Yes, ma'am.
Where it says Lucy, would that correspond to where we are looking at Lucy having sat?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, because, I guess if we do it this way, that would be how we would know that this location is where Lucy was seated. Fair to say?
Yes, ma'am.
Come on over here so we can see. So this is the 3 bench seats here, and a prior witness identified that Lucy was seated here. I'd like to ask if during this process of trying to recreate for the jury a sense of what the defendant's vessel was doing prior to and at impact, was there somebody who actually sat in seat 9, the seat that was identified as the seat that Lucy had been in, filming from that vantage point where the vessel was traveling?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen that video?
Yes, ma'am.
For the record, I'm showing counsel's, oh, no, it's already in evidence, states number 98. Earlier, did you get a chance to look at this?
Yes, ma'am.
And you put your initials on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Judge, at this time, I publish this exhibit.
Same objections previously asserted.
And over those objections,
Lieutenant, would you be able to come down here with the court's
Yes.
permission? I'm going to stop this a couple of times and then replay it from the beginning, but we're heading down the channel,
Yes, ma'am.
and I'm going to stop this and ask you kind of where we're at.
Yes, ma'am.
What channel marker is that?
Be 13. 13A?
Take a close look.
13A.
Okay. What's this right here?
That's our first GPS buoy.
And what does that represent?
Reaching that at 43 miles an hour, and that is the moment where I start to accelerate to 47 miles an hour.
And is this buoy in just about the same location as that second to last track point before the vessel strikes the channel marker?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What I'm pointing to here with my pen, what is that?
That's the second GPS buoy.
Okay. And this represents the last track point prior to impact?
Yes, ma'am.
Lieutenant, when is this channel marker there?
Green marker 15.
You're quite a ways away from it.
Yes, ma'am.
We can see it already?
Yes, ma'am.
thing I want to ask you about was yesterday. Our jurors came and examined the robalo at your office, just in front of the office building, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, prior to them viewing the boat, did you stand next to the boat and point to 2 locations on that vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 68. And if the witness can step down, please, Judge?
Yes.
Can you use this exhibit to point out the 2 locations that you pointed to for the jurors?
The first point is right here. The second point is right here.
Can you explain to the jurors what you were pointing out?
Up here, I'm pointing out what we call as the paint transfer from the green day board that was on top of markers 15 as the initial impact point.
And you pointed to a second location.
Here,
What is that?
the secondary impact point.
And why were you, what was there that let you know that?
The extreme amount of damage that started from this point.
And in fact, was there paint transfer there as well?
There was.
Showing counsel states 5S and 5T. Do exhibits 5S and 5T represent the 2 locations of paint transfer that you just described?
Yes, ma'am.
I would move states 5S and 5T for identification and evidence.
No objection.
5S, marked for identification, now State's Exhibit 112. 5T, 113.
I'm sorry, 113?
113.
Thank you.
And in my right hand, I have the paint transfer at the front or the bow of the boat.
Yes, ma'am.
And on my left hand, I have the paint transfer that was in the middle part of the boat.
Yes, ma'am.
I have no other questions.
We have the lawyers over here just for a moment. Thank you. Counsel, before you start the cross-examination, ladies and gentlemen, during the course of the direct examination of the witness, there was a question asked of the witness, and the response from the witness was that he used the word dangerous in his response. I overruled the defense objection. That objection should have been sustained. You would disregard any statement or any conclusion by the witness with the use of the word dangerous in terms of what he has done. All right? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Thompson.
Good afternoon.
Lieutenant, you indicated that during your interviews and interactions with Mr. Pino that there was no detection on your part. You did not observe any signs of impairment by alcohol. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The first time at the point that you had your first interaction with Mr. Pino, however, approximately 2 hours had passed since the accident in this case. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So, to be more specific, the accident occurred sometime around 6:37 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the first time that you had contact with Mr. Pino was at 8:16 p.m. according to your testimony today. Does that sound right?
Yes, sir.
So almost 2 hours later. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Would you not agree that that persons who were with Mr. Pino closer in time to the point of the accident, 6:37, that their impressions as to Mr. Pino's whether Mr. Pino appeared to be impaired by alcohol or not would be important to know?
Yes, sir.
And if such persons that observed Mr. Pino at the time closest to the accident were to say that they didn't detect or didn't observe anything about Mr. Pino which would have indicated alcohol impairment, that would be valuable for this jury to know. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
As well as witnesses to Mr. Pino's state of mind or physical state while he was actually at the sandbar in this case. Witnesses at the sandbar with Mr. Pino who were able to say there was no evidence of impairment by alcohol with Mr. Pino, that also would be important for this jury to know. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Particularly if those witnesses did not observe any evidence of alcohol impairment. You would agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
We heard earlier today that when you had your first opportunity to have interaction with Mr. Pino, that was at the seawall at Elliott Key Harbor. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pino was on a police boat. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, he was on a police boat with one of your members of your crew that day, Keith Hernandez. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And when you are asking Mr. Pino some basic background questions about his boat during that interaction, Mr. Pino answered those questions, correct?
Yes, sir.
But he also offered an explanation, his memory about how this accident occurred, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to go through slowly with you. We have the benefit of the transcript that was prepared for the jury. And Mr. Pino says that we were going back, we were coming through the channel. Of course, he's referring to Cutter Bank Channel. Was that your understanding at the time?
Yes, sir.
And there were two girls sitting in the back. A boat was coming. We were going by the little, and then you interrupt him and say, you leave the boat in the water at Ocean Reef, or is it at a trailer at Ocean Reef? That's all that you were interested in at that moment. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
But Mr. Pino continues with his answer, and he tells you, no, it's in the water. So anyways, I turned back to look because there were two girls sitting in the back seat of the boat. And I had 5 or 6 in the front, my wife in the middle, and we were coming, and I approached the waves head first, like I always do. And the boat hit. I was looking at the girls, and just to make sure they were okay if they were sitting in the back, and the next thing I know, it hit the wave, and I tried to swing, and the right side of the boat would be the left side of the boat, hit the pylon. My God, I can't believe it. You recall him telling you that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pino was telling you that in his memory of the way the accident occurred, as a part of that, he believes that the left side of his boat made contact with the pylon.
Objection, calls for speculation.
This is what he told you, isn't
Excuse
it?
me.
I'm going to overrule as to what was said. Go ahead.
But Judge,
Go ahead. Overrule.
That, in fact, is not the case, though, correct? The
Correct.
left side of Mr. Pino's boat did not make contact with the pylon in this case, did it?
No, sir.
In fact, we know just from the pictures presented in this case. Which is this exhibit I just had showing the boat damage? This is it. Thank you. As we saw in State's Exhibit number 68, very clearly, damage happens to the right side of the boat. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's not a mystery in this case, is it? That's not in dispute here, right?
No, sir.
But at least when Mr. Pino had that initial interaction with you, it was his belief, his memory, at that moment that actually it was the left side.
Objection.
That's the same as to what Mr. Pino's belief was or wasn't.
You go on. You ask him if he has a trailer for the boat, and he tells you that the boat goes back to Ocean Reef, etc., and so on. There's then another opportunity that you have to speak with Mr. Pino. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Because after you had your initial interaction with him while he was at the seawall on Officer Alec's boat, you went to, because you needed to make some phone calls. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
In connection with the accident scene that you were working, or the accident investigation that you were working, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you came back, you had a further conversation with him. And you tell Mr. Pino, Mr. Pino says to you, someone told me that, well, the other girl that was on there, Tammy, she's over there. She was there on the boat with my wife when the other girl was getting airlifted. And you reply, see, I'm still getting all the pieces. See, I'm still getting all the pieces. Pino, she said that she was getting CPR. You respond, I don't know about that yet. So, first thing I'm going to do, talk to you about, there's a boating accident, a serious injury. And Mr. Pino, then there was some conversation between you, Mr. Pino, about alcohol, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Pino says to you, in response, he says, you know, I had 2 beers. You recall him saying that?
Yes, sir.
And your response to that was, and it's not illegal to boat and drive. It's not illegal to drink a beer or a couple of beers and drive. And that's a true statement, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Pino says, I feel perfect in the way my mind was. I mean, I know what happened. I've been operating boats forever. I've done that ride 1,000 times. Do you know if Mr. Pino has done that ride 1,000 times?
I did not know.
Do you know if it's true?
I do not know if that's true.
Did you ever examine or become aware of the data examination of the GPS devices in Mr. Pino's boat?
Yes, sir.
Did either of the historic track points or in either of the GPS devices reflect thousands of rides through the Cutter Bank Channel?
No, it did not.
So this was Mr. Pino's memory.
Objection.
Biscayne.
The GPS devices did not bear out Mr. Pino's statement that he had been through the Cutter Channel thousands of times. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you reply to that and you say, you're allowed to drink alcohol and drive a boat. And this is what you told him, right?
Yes, sir.
And again, that is a true statement, right?
Yes, sir.
And during this conversation, further, Mr. Pino takes the opportunity, after following some additional conversation between the two of you, he takes the opportunity to tell you again about what his recollection, what his memory is of how the accident occurred. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Pino says, that was my wife and myself, right? And then 2 girls were on the back. And the rest of the girls in the front in the seating area. And then we were going through the last marker. There was a boat coming through, which was bigger. So the waves, I was veering to the right to cut into the waves. You say, okay. Mr. Pino continues. Right, like I always do, cut right through the waves. And I knew I was going to hit some waves. I looked back at the 2 girls that were sitting back there because I was a little concerned. I told my wife, watch. I even remember exactly who it was. It was Coco. Pretty sure it was Coco and Andrea. You recall him giving you that answer?
Yes, sir.
Now, Coco, he was referring to someone by the name of Coco Aguilar, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Andrea, he was referring to someone known as Andrea Knopfler, correct?
Yes, sir.
And both Coco Aguilar and Andrea Knopfler, they were passengers on Mr. Pino's boat at the time that this accident occurred.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Pino is telling you that he even remembers exactly who was sitting behind him, again saying it was Coco and Andrea. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, that turned out not to be true. Is that right?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Did you conducted a further investigation in the days and months leading or after this accident, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you determined who, in fact, of the passengers were sitting in the back of the boat, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And did your investigation reveal that it was Sarah Gutierrez?
Objection, this is hearsay.
Sustained.
Your investigation did not reveal that Coco Aguilar and Andrea Knopfler were sitting in the back of the boat.
Objection, it's hearsay.
Sustained. Go ahead.
Exhibit number 11, please. I'm handing you exhibit number 11.
Yes, sir.
Now, you recall, Detective, that exhibit number 11 was the boating diagram that was presented to the various passengers in this case in order to develop the seating chart of the seating chart of the passengers as they sat on Mr. Pino's boat on the day of this accident, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if you would, referring to exhibit number 11, what did your investigation reveal as to who was sitting in the back of the boat?
Objection, Judge, that's not what Exhibit 11 demonstrates.
Is it introduced?
Yes.
Evidence?
Yes, but it was not from the detective, it was the words of other witnesses.
I'm going to allow it. Go ahead.
It says Sarah and Mia.
Not Coco and Andre.
Correct.
So Mr. Pino gave you mistaken information when he said that Coco and Andrea were sitting behind him. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pino goes on. And he tells you, speeding up a bit, he says, so I turned around and I said, hey guys, watch out, hold on, because I'm cutting into the waves and you guys are on the back, and if you bump around, they were right on the back. There was a seat at the back of the boat, and as soon as I said it, I was cutting through the wave and I looked, and the wheel, I guess when it hit the waves, the wheel turned a little bit, okay, turned a little bit as I was cutting back in, and I lost a little bit control, and I think I turned, okay, and it was I'm pretty sure it was the left side of the boat that skimmed the left side of the boat, probably towards the front to try to turn away from it. So again, Mr. Pino tells you that it was the left side of the boat that made contact. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And he goes on to say, and the boat hit the left front boat, and then we all got ejected. Do you know if Mr. Pino's statement to you that, quote unquote, they all got ejected, or I'm sorry, that we all got ejected, was true?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Do you know if Mr. Pino's statement that, quote, we all got ejected was an accurate statement?
Objection, Judge.
Sustained.
You asked Mr. Pino, once you get ejected, when you came up, what did you see? that you can remember. And Mr. Pino says that I know exactly what I saw. It's because I'm having a problem. I'm having a problem recalling because it was very scary. I got up, so I know I couldn't believe what had happened. I saw a few people floating. I yelled. I recognized some of them. They said, "All right, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." And then I immediately went under the boat to see if anyone was there. Do you recall him telling you that?
Yes, sir.
And you recall asking Mr. Pino, "Do you remember who was under there?" referring to the boat. And Mr. Pino responded, "I'm very clear who was under there, and I got her." And you asked Mr. Pino, "What was her name?" Do you remember what Mr. Pino told you?
I have to look at my notes.
Mr. Pino told you it was Natty Reed. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, sir.
And we, of course, are here in this trial because it wasn't Natty Reed who was under the boat, right?
Correct.
Do you know who was under the boat?
Objection, Judge. Calls for speculation. Witness not there.
Question, please.
Do you know who was under the boat?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Rephrase your question.
Sure. Lucy Fernandez was under the boat, wasn't she?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Rephrase your question, please.
Not sure I understand the...
Come over here, please.
Sure.
Explain it to me. All right. Counsel? Thank you. You may
Thank
proceed.
you. Thank you.
And, your questions.
At any time after the accident, did you interview Natty Reed?
I'd have to go through my notes.
Do you know of anyone from you or your agency or any other agency that interviewed Natty Reed after the accident?
I would have to go through my notes.
Now, your conversation with Mr. Pino continued on later after that afternoon, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And at the time that you asked Mr. Pino if he would write a statement as to his, what happened, he agreed to do that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you had conversations between the two of you regarding any number of things that he and you thought would be appropriate to place in the statement. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that you asked Mr. Pino about was how fast he was going. If you remember, it's what his speed was.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right? And Mr. Pino mentioned to you, first he said 39 RPMs, 38, 39 RPMs, and RPMs means what?
Rotations per minute.
And when you're on a boat like Mr. Pino's, it's very common that the screen on many of these boats kind of shows what your speed is based on rotations per minute, RPMs, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if the RPMs are 39 RPMs, for example, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going 39 miles per hour on a boat. Is that right?
Correct.
Because there are many variants with speed on a boat, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, you discussed that with Mr. Pino because he was asking you, what does 39 RPMs correspond to in miles per hour? You remember that conversation?
Yes, sir.
And you were telling Mr. Pino that, just as we said, it could be a couple different things. It could be propeller, that he had 14 people on the boat. These are some of the variables which would affect speed. Remember that conversation?
Yes, sir.
One of the things that Mr. Pino offered was that he said he had a lot of weight on the boat, and that he said, quote, I have two engines, two 225s, Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And when he said 225s, he was referring to the size of the engines on his boat.
Objection calls for speculation.
Did you, the engines that were on Mr. Pino's boat, the accident, the boat that was involved in the accident had two 300 horsepower engines. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Twin 300s.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if Mr. Pino ever owned a boat prior to the boat that was involved in this accident?
No, sir.
You did notice when you began your interview with Mr. Pino that he did have his head wrapped in a gauze bandage. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know why it was that his head was wrapped in a gauze bandage?
I did not.
You suspect some head injury?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Pino, in fact, prepared the written statement for you that you asked for. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's in evidence now, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pino also told you, as we know, what his memory was as to how the accident happened. We just went all through that. Did you follow up with any type of investigation to determine if Mr. Pino's memory about another boat contributing to the cause of the accident occurred?
I did.
And what did you do in order to determine if there was another boat that contributed to this accident?
Multiple different things.
I'm sorry, we need to keep your voice up, sir.
Multiple different things.
Such as, Lieutenant, what did you do?
We spoke to Good Samaritans that were very first on scene. There was a picture taken by a Good Samaritan that showed the northbound aspect of the boating accident. We contacted other agencies, seeing if there were cameras in the area. We interviewed the passengers on the vessel.
And did you find anything in all of that which corroborated Mr. Pino's memory as to whether there was another boat?
Objection, hearsay.
Oh, no.
No.
You mentioned a picture taken by a Good Samaritan. How was that helpful to you in coming to the conclusion?
The photograph shows an image of the vessel that the defendant was operating capsized. I believe it's 3 minutes post-accident time. I'd have to verify in my notes if that's exact time. And it shows a northbound view of Key Biscayne with no vessels in sight.
And you said it was approximately 3 minutes after the accident?
I would have to look at my notes, but around that time frame.
Could it have been as soon as 2.5 minutes after the accident?
Could have been.
And the picture that you were referring to was a wide enough view so that you were comfortable that any boat that might have fit the description that Mr. Pino gave would still have been within the picture frame.
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant, one of the things that was recovered 2 days after the accident were some empty alcoholic beverage containers. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that was when the boat was actually recovered out of the water. There was an inspection done of the boat,
Yes, sir.
and that's where these things were discovered. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you testified earlier today that there were 61 empty alcoholic beverage containers.
Yes, sir, to my memory.
I see exhibits 107 through 109. Yes. Lieutenant, were you a part of the recovery team of the boat on the 6th?
Objection, Judge. This is beyond the scope of direct.
Because we don't
Just a question.
allow one question.
Sure, I think that's all I need. Were you a part of the recovery team?
I was at the dock that day.
Okay. You. Exhibit 97. Yeah. I'm drawing out the lead. It's drawing out the lead. That must be the message. While the clerk is looking for the exhibit, I wanted to ask some questions about your reenactment that you did on June 9th, 2025. Do you recall, I received let me ask you this, do you recall what time it was that the actual reenactment was done?
I'd have to look at my notes.
Do you have your notes with you?
I do.
Why don't you take a look at those and look up and you have your memory refreshed.
Around 8:47 a.m.
So at 8:47 a.m., is that when the actual runs with the vessel were done?
I don't have that report with me. That was the time frame that we started doing runs, but I don't know the full time frame of how long.
The group of persons that were going to be involved met at Bayfront Marina at about 8 a.m. that day, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so you're saying that about 8:47, you guys were out at the location?
Yes, sir.
And that's when the activity began, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the tide was, the tide phase at that time?
I do.
On that day? What was it?
It was a plus 1.75.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Plus 1.75.
Lieutenant, I want to show you one of the drone aerial footage that was taken on that day. That's take a look at that with me.
Yes, sir.
Before we look at the video, as I understand it, your testimony earlier was that you tried to follow the historic track that Mr. Pino's vessel took on the day of this accident as you possibly could. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the track that you followed was, based on the information that you took off or that you received from Mr. Pino's actual SIMRAD GPS device. Is that right?
The information that was given to Paul Abler, yes.
All right. And you were able to, it was actually you that was navigating or that was driving the test boat?
Yes, sir.
And you had that information, I presume, on the screen in front of you, the historic tracks, so that you could kind of steer on that. Is that right?
Mr. Abler did.
Okay. You said, was Mr.
Albert, sorry.
Albert was driving the boat?
No, he was present.
Okay. My question, though, is that you were, how was it that you were able to drive on the, close to the same track that Mr. Pino drove?
He set the GPS buoys himself and instructed me to follow the buoys from one buoy to the next.
Understood. And that was based on the historic tracks that were present on Mr. Pino's SIMRAD device?
Yes.
And you are comfortable, or you were convinced that the buoys that Mr. Albert set up for you are consistent with the actual course that Mr. Pino drove on the day of this accident? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Carlos, if you would call up S1001384. You are, may Lieutenant Thompson come down and take a look at this?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to play this through one time and we'll ask some questions about it. Prior to, hold that for a second. Now, prior to viewing this, you and I met today, and you authenticated for me that this video that you're about to see is an accurate representation of what took place that day. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, can we have what exhibit number this is?
Yeah, it's 97.
Thank you.
Yeah, once you start, you hold it there for a second. So this is the vessel that you were operating, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
And just for the sake of the record, what we're looking at here is a part of the Cutter Bank channel, correct?
Yes, sir.
And can you see what I'm pointing at the channel marker here. Do you know what channel marker that is?
13A.
I'm pointing at another one with a red triangle. Do you know what that is?
14.
And the final channel marker that I'm pointing at?
15.
15 is the channel marker that was aligned with. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's continue. Stop. Just let it- Let's run that back again. I see the questions. Stop it for a minute. Lieutenant Thompson, where your vessel appears at that moment at the 18-second timestamp, you're just 13A is just to the left side of your vessel. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's plenty of space between your vessel and the 13A channel marker at that point. Is it there?
Yes, sir.
Continue, please. Stop it there. Now, at this point, just past the 13A channel marker, you are still within the Cutter Bank channel. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And would you consider that the location of your vessel at that point is somewhere in the center of the Cutter Bank channel?
Yes, sir.
Continue. your vessel is continuing now, that is more in line with the left side of the channel, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, if there are no oncoming boats present in that video, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that is because the area has been essentially quarantined by other police vessels, is that right?
Yes, sir.
There were no oncoming boats, as you said earlier, you were convinced there were no oncoming boats at the time of the accident that Mr. Pino was involved in, is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
And you are past channel marker 15 at that point, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you were able to avoid colliding with channel marker 15, obviously, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the reason that you were able to avoid colliding with is because you were focused entirely on that channel.
Correct.
The very purpose that you were there was to conduct this experiment, if you will. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
It's reenactment, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so that's all that you were focused on, right?
I'm focused on all my surroundings while on the water, making sure I'm not going to hit any other channel markers, making sure the water depths are good, that my passengers are safe. I'm not just focused on that green marker.
Sure, but because you were completely focused, as you said, on all of these things, you were able to approach that channel marker 15 at close to or at the same rate that Mr. Pino was able to, that Mr. Pino approached that, but you managed to avoid colliding with him, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's because you saw it in front of you,
Yes, sir.
correct? You saw it even before you got to the channel marker itself, is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And you were able to make the decision as you got closer to it, to turn, or in your case, you turned slightly to the left in order to avoid the collision, right?
Yes, sir.
And but for the fact that you were not distracted by anything else, you were able to safely get around channel marker 15, correct?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further to that. Just final question for you, Lieutenant. You mentioned earlier, in response to my question about the tide that was present.
You said tide?
Tide, T-I-D-E. You answered my question about the tide that was present at the time that you conducted this recreation. Do you know what station that tide was measured from?
No, sir.
And I ask because, of course, different stations will have different tide levels. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So what the tide might be in downtown Miami isn't necessarily where the tide is going to be in Coconut Grove, for example.
It'll be pretty close based on the area, but it will be different.
Okay. And I believe you said that the tide, as you recall, was plus 1.75. Was that it?
Yes, sir.
And that means exactly what?
There's a standard level that the sea level's at, and it goes up and down from there. So plus 1.75 would be 1 foot, 1 and 0.75 feet above that standard level.
And was that considered the highest tide for that day?
No, it was not.
At that time? What was the high point tide?
I do not know.
Okay. Do you know what the low point tide was?
I do not.
All right. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Think so.
You do it.
Yes. Speaking of tides, the tide on the day that recreation was done, you indicated the tide was what exactly?
Plus 1.75.
Did you ever research what the tide was at that location on September 4th, 2022 at about 6:30 p.m.?
I did.
What was it?
The high tide of the day was at 4:48 p.m., which was plus 2.2. The low tide was going to be at 11:33 p.m., which is negative 0.7. So it's be somewhere between there, roughly around 1.5 feet.
So at the time that the vessel collision happened in this particular case, the tide was lower than it was during this recreation?
It was.
Now, in terms of what that means as far as how high up or down the water moves along that channel marker, when would the water have been higher up on the channel marker? On the day of the recreation or at the time of the crash?
It was higher at the day of the recreation.
So at the time of the crash, would more of the sign have been visible?
It would have.
I want to show you a picture. It's in evidence. It states exhibit number 10. Do you recognize from this investigation who is depicted in these photographs?
More or less, yes.
And are a lot of these girls the girls that were in fact on the vessel?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me ask you a question first off. Are they black or white?
No.
Huh?
Colored picture.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We needed that on a Friday. What is the race of these girls? Black, white?
Mostly white.
Okay. What about hair length?
Longer hair for most of them.
What are they wearing?
String bikinis.
Some of them are wearing sunglasses.
Yes,
Overall, do these girls kind of look alike?
they do.
So when Mr. Pino is trying to tell you where he remembers the individual girls were, maybe not so easy to distinguish them when they're wearing bathing suits?
Correct.
The defense asked you about Mr. Pino saying that he's traversed that area thousands of times. Were you taking him literally at that moment?
No, ma'am.
So like if I say to you, we've had thousands of sidebars in this trial, do you think we've really walked over to the side of the judge's bench thousands of times?
No.
Do you know if when Mr. Pino told you that he had had 2 beers, do you know for sure if that's the truth?
No.
When he told you that there was this other vessel that caused this crash, do you know if that's the truth?
No.
Do you know whether he said that because he was misremembering what happened?
No, ma'am.
Do you know if maybe he said that because he wanted to blame somebody else for this crash?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you know?
No.
Nothing else.
All right, the witness is excused. Sir, you may be subject to recall. You remain under the scheme.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.